Welcome, dear listeners, to another chilling episode of our scary stories. I am your host, guiding you down the shadowed path of fear and suspense. Tonight, we journey to a small, idyllic town not unlike any other, but beneath its peaceful facade lurks an insidious force waiting to be awakened. A vortex of despair that feeds on regrets, crafted by a legend steeped in sorrow and revenge. Buckle up, those of you with the brave hearts, as we descend into Harmony Haven, the Vortex of Regrets. Remember, in the world of our scary stories, nothing is as it seems. Now, let's step into the unknown, and hope we make it back. The day dawned unusually in Harmony Haven, a small town nestled in the heart of the countryside, known for its picturesque landscapes and a sense of community that ran generations deep. The sun, usually a bright, cheerful orb in the sky, was a muted disk hiding behind a thin veil of clouds. It cast an ethereal, almost otherworldly glow over the charming houses lining Elm Street, their white picket fences seeming to shimmer under the soft light. The air carried a charge, something electric, something that could not be explained, making the hair on your arms and neck stand on end. The town, usually abuzz with the sounds of life, chirping birds, children's laughter, friendly banter, was eerily silent, and a shiver of unease crawled up the spine of every townsfolk. In the heart of the town, the park, usually a place of joy and laughter, was now the epicenter of everyone's attention. A swirling vortex had appeared overnight, hovering just above the ground, pulsating with an unseen force. Its core was a void of utter blackness, surrounded by twisting tendrils of energy that were an uncanny mix of colors, blues and purples, reds and greens, colors that seemed to shift and change every second. It was mesmerizing, in a terrifying way, radiating an energy that was palpable even from a distance. The news of the vortex had spread through the town like wildfire. By the time the morning mist had lifted, almost every resident of Harmony Haven had gathered at the park, their eyes wide with a mixture of fascination and fear. Parents held their children close, friends huddled together, and whispers spread through the crowd like ripples on a pond. Sheriff Sam Adams was there, his normally jovial face creased with worry, his blue eyes reflecting the dread that had gripped the town. He was a man of logic, a man who believed in reason and evidence, but what he was looking at defied all sense of rationality. The vortex hung there, an aberration in their peaceful town, a silent specter that threatened their tranquility. Amelia, the local librarian, stood next to him, her usually bright eyes clouded with unease. She had always been fascinated by the history and folklore of Harmony Haven, but today her love for stories seemed to have led her into a real-life mystery, one that was far more terrifying than anything she had read in her books. On the outskirts of the crowd, Emily, a young teenager known for her curiosity and bravery, watched the vortex with a sense of dread and a spark of determination. Her friends were with her, their faces pale, their eyes wide, but they all looked at Emily, drawing courage from her unwavering gaze. As the town of Harmony Haven stood at the threshold of an unknown horror, their lives were about to change in ways they could never have imagined. The vortex was not just an anomaly, it was a door to their deepest fears and darkest regrets, a door that was about to open, plunging them into a nightmare that would test their courage, their unity, and their will to survive. In the heart of Harmony Haven, Sheriff Sam Adams found himself in an unsettling silence. His office, usually bustling with activity, was eerily quiet, a stark contrast to the chaos outside. The only sounds that broke the stillness were the soft ticking of the clock on the wall, and the occasional crackle of the police radio. The room, usually comforting in its familiarity, now felt cold and foreboding. Reports of missing persons were strewn across his desk. One by one, they had ventured near the vortex, driven by curiosity, fear, or a strange compulsion they couldn't explain, and none had returned. Sam knew them all. Harmony Haven was a small town, after all. They were not just names on a report. They were friends, neighbors, people he had known for years. And they were disappearing without a trace. Sam ran a hand through his graying hair, his blue eyes scanning the reports. "What in God's name is happening?" he muttered to himself. He was a man of logic, of law and order. He believed in evidence, in things that could be explained and understood. But this was beyond his comprehension. The vortex was a mystery, an anomaly that defied all laws of nature. And it was swallowing his townsfolk. His mind raced with questions. What was the vortex? Where did it come from? Why was it here, in Harmony Haven of all places? And most importantly, where were the people who had gone into it? Were they alive? Were they safe? Each question was like a weight pressing down on him, adding to the burden he already felt as the town's sheriff. He rubbed his temples, feeling a headache coming on. The smell of old paperwork and brewed coffee, usually comforting, was now overpowered by a bittersweet scent of fear. It hung in the air, as tangible as the papers he held in his hands. It was a scent he knew all too well, a scent that reminded him of other times, other cases where things had gone terribly wrong. His gaze fell on the window, where he could see the vortex in the distance. Even from here, he could see its unnatural glow, its pulsating energy. It was like a dark star casting a shadow over their peaceful town, a silent predator lurking in their midst. Sam felt a chill run down his spine. He had faced many things in his years as sheriff, but nothing like this. Sheriff Adams, a voice came from the radio, snapping him back to reality. It was another report, another name to add to the list. Sam took a deep breath, steeling himself. He was the sheriff. He had a duty, a responsibility. He couldn't afford to be afraid, not when his town needed him. As he answered the call, his mind was already working, planning, strategizing. He didn't know what the vortex was or how to stop it, but he knew one thing for sure. He would not let Harmony Haven fall into despair. He would find a way. He had to. After all, he was Sheriff Sam Adams, the protector of Harmony Haven. Harmony Haven was once again gripped by an unprecedented event. The vortex, an eerie sentinel that had been the harbinger of disappearances, was now spewing out its captives. It was as if an invisible hand had turned the hourglass, and the lost souls were trickling back to reality, one by one. The first to emerge was old Mrs. Peterson, the town's beloved baker, a woman known for her rosy cheeks and ever-present smile. She staggered out of the vortex looking like a specter of her former self. Her once vibrant eyes, always twinkling with warmth, were wide with shock, her skin pale and drawn. She crumbled to the ground, her body trembling, as if the very life had been drained out of her. The smell of her famous cinnamon rolls, which usually lingered around her, was replaced by the cold, metallic scent of fear. Next came Bill Harper, the jovial postman, always ready with a friendly wave and a kind word. He stumbled out of the vortex, his normally neat uniform disheveled, his cap missing. His round, cheerful face was gaunt, and his eyes held a haunted look. He stood there, staring blankly, the usual twinkle in his eyes replaced by a terrifying emptiness. Then young Molly Stevens, just a girl of 12, stepped out. She was always full of life, a whirlwind of energy and laughter, but now she seemed older, her youthful innocence replaced by a shadow of dread. Her bright eyes were dull, her lips trembling as she clung to her teddy bear, its once vibrant colors mirroring her own faded vibrancy. Each return was a horrifying spectacle. The townsfolk watched in a stunned silence as their friends, their neighbors, their loved ones returned from the vortex. They were the same people they knew and loved, but they had changed. They looked as if they had peered into the abyss and had been forever altered by the experience. The air was charged with a chilling mix of relief and fear. Relief because their missing folks were returning, but fear for the state they were in. The park, usually a place of joy and camaraderie, had turned into a theater of horror, the grass now stained with the footprints of those who had been spat out from the vortex. Sheriff Sam Adams was at the forefront, his heart pounding as he watched the surreal scene unfold. He was their pillar, their beacon of hope, but even he couldn't help the shudder of dread that ran down his spine. The vortex was not just swallowing people, it was spewing out broken souls, leaving a chilling question hanging in the air. What horrors had they witnessed in that alternate reality? The Harmony Haven Library, with its towering shelves of books, and the musty scent of old pages, had always been a place of solace for Amelia and Emily. It was a sanctuary, a treasure trove of knowledge and tales that whisked them away to different worlds. But tonight, under the dim light of the antique chandelier, it felt like the nerve center of a critical investigation. The large oak table, usually the site of book club discussions, was strewn with documents, newspaper articles, and maps. Amelia was leafing through an ancient town ledger, its pages brittle with age, the ink faded but the fear it held, still potent. Emily was scouring the local newspaper archives, her eyes scanning the yellowing pages, looking for any information that could shed light on the vortex. The air was thick with the scent of aged paper, a comforting aroma that normally filled them with a sense of peace. But tonight it felt heavy, laden with the weight of their mission. The silence of the library was broken only by the rustle of turning pages, and the occasional creak of a chair. Suddenly, Amelia gasped, her eyes wide as they scanned an old ledger entry. "Listen to this, Emily," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, as if afraid to disturb the ghost of the past. "May 16th, 1873. Unnatural phenomenon occurred in Harmony Haven. A swirling mass of darkness appeared. Townsfolk lost, then returned in states of great distress." Emily leaned closer, her heart pounding in her chest as she read the words. Her gaze met Amelia's, both their faces reflecting the dawning realization. "This has happened before," Emily murmured, her voice a mix of dread and determination. "Yes, over 150 years ago," Amelia confirmed, her hand shaking slightly as she carefully turned the page. "And it seems the vortex disappeared as mysteriously as it had appeared, 3 days after the first disappearance." The room fell into a chilling silence as the two women absorbed the information. The library, their haven, now echoed with the whispers of the past. The musty smell of the old documents was no longer comforting. It was a reminder of the repeating history, a dreadful cycle they were now a part of. As they delved deeper into the past, cross-referencing dates and events, they felt a growing sense of trepidation. The vortex was not just a random occurrence. It was a part of Harmony Haven's history, a terrifying secret hidden in plain sight. The clock was ticking, and they had to find a way to close the vortex before it unleashed more terror onto their town. Their journey was just beginning, and they could only hope they were ready for whatever lay ahead. The vortex loomed ominously at the edge of the park. The night was pitch black, but the swirling mass of energy stood out like a beacon, casting an eerie, pulsating light on the surrounding trees. Its hum was louder now, a constant, low drone that sent a shiver down the spine. The air was thick with tension, the sweet smell of the park's flowers replaced with a metallic scent that tasted like fear. Emily stood at the edge, her heart pounding like a war drum in her chest. Amelia was beside her, her usual confident demeanor replaced by a look of distress and apprehension. Their friends, Ben and Lucas, completed the quartet, their faces pale and drawn in the unnatural light of the vortex. They were all united by a single purpose, to enter the vortex and discover its secrets. The silence was deafening. Emily could hear her own breathing, ragged and uneven, matching the chaotic rhythm of her heart. She could smell the dew on the grass, feel the cool night air prickling her skin. Every sense was heightened, every detail magnified, as if time itself had slowed down. "Are we really doing this?" Ben's voice broke the silence, a tremor of fear evident in his normally carefree tone. "We have to. For Harmony Haven," Amelia replied, her voice steady despite the fear in her eyes. They exchanged glances, their determination hardening into resolve. Emily took a deep breath, her eyes never leaving the vortex. It was mesmerizing, terrifying, and it was calling to her. She could feel it, like a pull in her gut, an irresistible force that was drawing her in. She stepped forward, her heart pounding in her chest. The ground beneath her seemed to vibrate with the energy of the vortex. Then, in an instant, the world turned upside down. It was as if invisible hands had grabbed her, pulling her into the vortex. A scream ripped through her throat as she was yanked off her feet, the world around her blurring into a whirl of colors. She could feel herself being sucked in, the force overwhelming, relentless. She could hear her friends' screams merging with her own, their terror echoing in the swirling chaos. The vortex was no longer a fascinating mystery. It was a horrifying reality, a nightmarish journey that was tearing them away from their world. The last thing Emily saw before the darkness swallowed her was the park, her hometown, shrinking into a pinprick of light, before everything went black. The descent into the vortex, into the unknown, had begun. The vortex was unlike anything they had imagined. It wasn't a portal or a tunnel, but a swirling mass of darkness, a void where reality seemed to warp and twist. They were caught in a tumultuous storm of shadows and echoes, a space that felt both infinite and claustrophobic at the same time. Emily found herself in a world of fragmented memories, a barrage of moments from her past that she had buried deep within. She saw herself as a child, standing on the edge of a swimming pool, the terror of water consuming her. She could feel the cold tiles under her bare feet, hear the echoes of laughter, and taste the chlorine on her lips. Her heart pounded as the old fear washed over her, the regret of never overcoming her fear of water choking her. Amelia, usually so composed, was thrown into a whirlwind of her own regrets. She was back in her family home, the sound of her parents arguing ringing in her ears. The guilt she felt for leaving her younger siblings behind when she moved to Harmony Haven consumed her. She could smell the familiar scent of her mother's cooking, hear the echoes of her siblings' laughter, and the sting of her tears was as real as it had been all those years ago. Ben was reliving his own nightmare, the regret of not standing up to his high school bullies. He could feel the humiliation all over again, the taste of blood in his mouth as real as the day he'd been beaten up. The taunting laughter echoed in his ears, and the sting of his bruises felt raw and fresh. The vortex wasn't just a void, it was a cruel mirror reflecting their deepest regrets. Lucas, the youngest of the group, was forced to confront his own demons. He was back at his grandmother's funeral, the regret of not visiting her more often engulfing him. He could smell the scent of her old perfume, feel the rough fabric of the black suit he wore that day, and taste the bitterness of his guilt. The vortex wasn't just a physical journey, but an emotional one. It dug deep into their hearts, unearthing their deepest fears and regrets, forcing them to confront the ghosts of their past. The experience was personal, unique to each of them, but the underlying feeling was the same, raw, unfiltered regret. They were all alone in their suffering, yet together in their experience. The vortex was merciless, relentless. But amidst the chaos, the fear, and the guilt, they clung onto one thing: the hope of making it back to Harmony Haven. Their journey through the vortex was just beginning, and they had no choice but to face their past and fight their fears. The vortex spat them out into a world that was at once familiar yet unsettlingly different. They stood at the center of Harmony Haven, but it was a distorted version of their town, shrouded in an eerie twilight. Buildings loomed ominously, their shadows twisted into grotesque shapes, and the air was filled with a silence that was almost deafening. Suddenly, a figure materialized before them. It was a woman, but not just any woman. It was Agnes Crowley, the town's founder, known in hushed whispers and secret tales as the Witch of Harmony Haven. She stood tall and imposing, her figure draped in a cloak as dark as the vortex. Her eyes were a startling shade of green, shining with an unnatural light, and her hair, wild and untamed, was as white as a winter's snow. But what struck them most was the aura of power and malevolence that seemed to radiate from her. She opened her mouth, her voice resonating around them. It was like the rustle of dead leaves, a chilling wind that swept through the distorted town. "Welcome, children of Harmony Haven. Welcome to your nightmare," she intoned, her voice a haunting melody that echoed in the silence. Terror gripped them, icy fingers clutching at their hearts. But it was Emily who found the courage to speak. "Why are you doing this?" she demanded, her voice shaking yet defiant. Agnes's lips curled into a cruel smile, her green eyes glittering with malicious delight. "Why? To teach a lesson," she replied, her voice dripping with venom. "Every generation must learn to face its fears, confront its regrets. Only then can you truly appreciate the life you have." Her words hung in the air, a chilling prophecy that sent a shiver down their spines. She was punishing them, punishing Harmony Haven, for their complacency, their ignorance. The vortex was her creation, her tool of retribution, a mirror that reflected their deepest fears and regrets. Agnes Crowley, the Witch of Harmony Haven, was not just a legend, a scary tale told around campfires. She was real, and she had them trapped in a nightmare. Their hearts pounded in their chests, fear mingling with a newfound determination. They had to fight, they had to survive, for themselves and for Harmony Haven. As Agnes faded away, leaving them alone in the twisted version of their town, they knew their real battle was just beginning. This was their town, their home, and they would fight to reclaim it from the clutches of the vortex. Summoning Agnes Crowley was no easy task. The town of Harmony Haven was shrouded in an eerie gloom that bore down on them like a heavy, oppressive blanket. Despite this, they gathered in the town square, standing firm on the cobblestones that had seen centuries of history, including the bitter truth of Agnes herself. Lucas, using his knowledge gleaned from town archives and lore, guided them through the incantation. The words were archaic, heavy with meaning and power. As they uttered the spell in unison, the air around them began to crackle with energy. Suddenly, with a gust of wind that sent dry leaves swirling, Agnes Crowley manifested before them once more. Her green eyes gleamed like malevolent emeralds in the dim light, but this time the group met her gaze without flinching. They were no longer the terrified children who had been thrown into the vortex. They were the defenders of Harmony Haven, ready to face their enemy. "You dare summon me?" Agnes snarled, her voice echoing off the distorted buildings. "We dare," Emily retorted, her voice steady. And we know your secret, Agnes. Agnes's smirk wavered, replaced by a look of surprise. Emily continued, we know about your daughter, about your regret. You were the one who failed to protect her. And now you're forcing others to relive their regrets because of your own. The effect was immediate. Agnes staggered back as if she'd been struck. Her cloak billowed around her, revealing the figure of a woman burdened by centuries of guilt. Her green eyes lost their malevolent gleam, replaced by a flash of pain that they all understood too well. The battle that followed was not of physical blows, but of words and revelations, as the group faced Agnes with the painful truths of her past. The town square resonated with their voices, each word chipping away at the barrier Agnes had built around her heart. They forced her to see her daughter, to hear her laughter, to remember the love they shared. They made her confront her regret, her guilt over failing to protect her child, the same way they had been made to confront their own regrets. It was a battle of wills, and it was a battle they were winning. The vortex started to shudder, its swirling mass beginning to wane. The distorted image of Harmony Haven flickered, the real town peeking through like the break of dawn after a long, dark night. The confrontation was draining, but they stood strong, their determination fueling their resolve. Agnes Crowley was a force to reckon with, but they were the children of Harmony Haven, and they were here to reclaim their town. The confrontation with Agnes had been grueling, a test of their courage and resolve. But the real battle, it seemed, had only just begun. The vortex, though weakened, still spun ominously at the edge of town. As they turned towards it, they knew what they had to do. They walked towards the vortex, a united front against the swirling mass of shadows. The air was electric with tension, the sense of impending doom heavy in the atmosphere. But they pressed on, their hearts filled with hope and determination. As they neared the vortex, a strange sensation washed over them. It wasn't fear or trepidation, but a sense of familiarity, a déjà vu. The vortex was a reflection of their own regrets, and they were about to step into it willingly. Emily was the first to approach it. She paused at the edge, her heart pounding in her chest. She turned back to the others, offering them a brave smile before stepping into the vortex. Amelia, Ben, and Lucas followed her, their expressions a mirror of her own determination. Inside the vortex, they faced their regrets one last time. They felt the same fear, the same guilt, but this time they confronted it head-on. They acknowledged their regrets, accepted them as part of their past, and let them go. Emily, standing at the edge of the pool in her childhood memory, jumped into the water, confronting her fear head-on. Amelia, back in her family home, comforted her younger siblings and made peace with her decision to leave. Ben stood up to his bullies, while Lucas visited his grandmother's grave, promising to keep her memory alive. When they emerged from the vortex, they were not just survivors, but victors. The vortex, once a swirling mass of darkness, had vanished, leaving only the peaceful town of Harmony Haven in its wake. The world seemed brighter, the air fresher. They exchanged smiles, their eyes shining with the relief and joy of their victory. They had faced their deepest fears, battled their regrets, and emerged stronger. As they walked back into their town, their home, they felt a sense of peace settle over them. They had returned from the vortex changed, their lives irrevocably altered by their journey. But they were ready to face their future, to live without the shadow of the vortex looming over them. Harmony Haven had been freed from the clutches of Agnes Crowley and her vortex of despair. Life would go on, scars would heal, and regrets would fade into memories. But the lessons they learned, the courage they found, and the bonds they forged would stay with them forever. The tale of Harmony Haven, of the mysterious vortex, and their journey of self-discovery would become a legend, a story to be told to future generations. A story of bravery, resilience, and the power of confronting one's fears. It was the end of their nightmare and the beginning of their new life. And so, dear listeners, our journey comes to an end. We've walked the haunted streets of Harmony Haven, peered into the swirling vortex of despair, and emerged from the depths of our deepest regrets. Perhaps the real horror is not in ghouls or witches, but in the monsters of our past that we must confront. Remember, our regrets, like the vortex, can consume us if we let them. But as the brave folks of Harmony Haven showed us, we hold the power to overcome them. Thank you for joining us on this terrifying journey. Until next time, when we uncover more tales from the darker corners of our existence. This is our Scary Stories signing off for tonight.